You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
Switching command to internal.
From the Collaborative Studios, Open the Eye, where metaphysical, paranormal, and the unexplained meet. Open the Eye with Tanya Tyler.
When we're born, our energy frequency vibration is higher. We just left the spirit realm versus our parents who've had 30 plus maybe years soaking up this beautiful ego dense world. According to the National Institute of Health, children sit in a brainwave that is a little bit slower up until the age of 6. It is called theta. The brainwaves are 4 to 8 hertz, 4 to 8 cycles per second. Now, what does this mean? It means that the imagination is vibrant. It's also a time frame to be programmed. Our belief system becomes stronger. Whatever the adults around us are telling us, we start to believe. Then sometimes we have imaginary friends that we play with. And sometimes we're told that they're not real. And being told over and over and over, we shut the door. And sometimes that door never opens. And one person that door is open is Willow. His energy, vibration, frequency is high. And he's here to share all of the magical stuff that happens. Can you share a little bit about how all this started? Take us on the journey.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I experienced a lot of beings in my dreams. I had experiences with imaginary friends and monsters in the closet type of thing. And I was in a household that was very abusive. My father was an alcoholic, and the family dynamic wasn't the best situation, very emotionally and mentally targeted onto me. So over time, I kind of closed myself off and started going into the woods more, started being kind of on my own. And when I was around 13 years old, I was in 8th grade. My parents had purchased a country store, like a bait tackle type shop, right beside a state park. So I was going into the woods a lot. In the state park. Anytime I wasn't working, I was off in that direction. And riding my bike one day, and a tiger walked out of the woods that was see-through. But it was there, like I could see it. I walked out, thought I was going crazy, took off as fast as I could on my bike. This tiger started following me, kind of stalking me in a way. Friend noticed it, and she was like, "Hey, what's going on? You're acting weird, you're acting strange." And I told her and confided in her, and she brought up the idea of Native American traditions with totem animals and spirit animals. So I realized my tiger I was seeing was actually a spirit guide, a spirit protector who was following me, and it wasn't anything to be afraid of. And so I ended up embracing it and seeing it more. It's a being that I've even had people see when they spend time around me. So after 13, I started seeing evidence of like Sasquatches in the woods. I found a footprint. I could see them in the distance every once in a while. And again, thought I was going crazy, didn't tell anybody. I knew I couldn't tell my parents because that was, you're going to end up on pills or these different situations. I just intuitively knew, don't tell anybody. So I kept it quiet. I went to college. In college, I got to explore an enormous library. It was a small college, but to me, the library was enormous because we had a small town where the library was the size of a house, and this thing was enormous, and it had interlibrary loan and all that. So I was able to start studying about Atlantis and the ancient cultures and different people who had my thoughts and opinions on ancient society, that it was more than what it was meant to be. And this is back in like 2003, so it's not even, it wasn't even accepted in the least back then. People like Graham Hancock is a name some people might know, who was actually proven 20 years later to be accurate about what he was saying. I'm studying all this stuff, studying Buddhism, getting into meditations and clearing your mind, focusing, doing these different impermanence meditations, and starting to feel like I'm going places and traveling places. I did that work. I was experiencing in college, too. I experienced a time when my friends walked in and I could see totems for every single one, animal spirits for every single one, and they thought I was going crazy. And so I just knew over time that it's something to keep quiet, and you had to have the right people around, that sort of thing. I met somebody in my early 20s who was a medium and did mediumship courses and got involved with a group that was doing that type of work. And when I say mediumship, I mean talking to past loved ones, ancestors, those types of energies. They didn't have much of a calling to work with fairies and dragons and galactics and those, but I had this feeling like they were all real. I was already seeing fairies at the time. I was seeing gods like Thor. He would show up every once in a while, and all these different beings. I never expected galactics. Fairies came.
So you went through mediumship. You studied with this guy.
Yeah.
How long did you study with them?
I studied with that group for maybe 2 years. It wasn't very long. They were kind of just like a spiritual group that would meet up, and you do group readings, I guess. I forget what they called them back then, but you get in a meditation, and then everybody would see spirits. Is there somebody in the center of the room? And we try to describe who it was.
Go through college, and you're going through all the ancient civilization, you're understanding all this, and you're still having your tiger with you, and now you're starting to see other things. Do you think that mediumship helped you grow into that direction on your vibration to see those different realms?
Yes, it helped me to connect specifically with the ancestors and the dead, which I always feel is kind of like the first step for a lot of people. Not necessarily everybody, but their vibration is closest to us since they've just kind of passed over from Earth lifetimes.
Okay, so the people that have passed over would be the closest vibration to us, is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, thank you. You go through the mediumship, and then you're still hungry to learn more.
Right.
Thor comes. Is this through the mediumship? How does this work?
While I was doing mediumship, I was studying other things. I was studying a lot of mythology in college. They started showing up because of those studies, studying runes. There was a time where I took tarot class and just playing with oracles and different things. And runes really called to me. And runes are the Nordic version. You could call them like the Nordic version of tarot. They're just very simple symbols you throw down and do a reading with. And Thor, I started making offerings to him. At the same time, it was like there were dragons I was working with offerings, Thor, fairies, and they all kind of came through that area of my life that was building energy towards them. The biggest thing I was doing is it wasn't that I was necessarily seeing them all the time. I could feel them around. I have clients who often say, like, hey, I can't see things I want to see. And I was like, well, sometimes you feel them first. You feel that there's something there or that sort of thing. And so you make a purposeful acknowledgement of it. And the more you do that and acknowledge them, the more they start to go, okay, well, we're going to actually show ourselves to you. So, like, I've had situations where Thor has actually showed up. And when I've offered, he loves mead and beer, like really high quality beer and stuff. And so when I was, yeah, exactly. When I was still drinking alcohol, I would always share one with him. Mm-hmm. And there were times where I would put one there, and you would literally see him like drop into the room and sit there in this giant man, much bigger than us, just sitting in the room, enjoying the energy from the beer. And then I've had him pop his head in and do different things if we needed protection or something of that sort. But it was all about getting into vibrational alignment, which takes a lot of acknowledgement. I talk often with my clients about offerings. Like, you start, even if you can't see them, start making an offering. Start showing them that you're willing to work with them, that you're willing to acknowledge them and know that they are there. And that's where they start showing up, especially the fairy beings and the dragons. They're very keen on intention, the intention of something. So if you make an intention around, hey, here's some oats, here the intention and energy is to give this energy to these beings, they can see that, they can feel that, so they start coming to you. And I was doing a lot of practice in my 20s with that, going into nature, being called to trees and being told to pick up trash as an offering or leave oats or leave different things. And then fairies starting to see me and feeling them around. And then when I was about 28, I think, 28, 29, that's when I actually saw a gnome walk out of the woods. Like, he was there. There was a picnic bench by Lake Erie, and I had just been sitting on it for 15 minutes. There was nothing on the bench. I got up, I turned around. He walked out of the woods and was like, here's a gift for you. And I was like shocked because I could see him. And then I looked where he was pointing, and on the bench was a quartz crystal. And I was like, oh my God. And they were just like, thank you. I kept going to this area that was a very magical area energetically, and had seen some things, but not like physically and that sort of thing. And that was my first fairy gifts, was this crystal that they had placed there that wasn't there before. Like, I was sitting on the bench. There's no way it was there. And so it's just building that relationship, especially in the wilderness, or if you're trying to work with a god or a dragon or even ancestors. There's a reason a lot of cultures give offerings to ancestors, is because the intention energetically shows people, hey, you're willing to start working with them, and you're willing to start accepting them into your life, type of thing. I was doing that, and then I had moved up towards Lake Erie. I always lived near it, but I moved right onto the lake. I started meditating. My guides were very adamant, you need to start meditating every day. And my clairaudience was so chaotic, I didn't know how to control it, that when I would meditate, I would hear thousands of voices, and that can drive a person mad. That's one of those things when people wake up, it's like their abilities can turn on, but they can turn on full power and actually shut you down. And that's what I did, is I ended up shutting it down for like 10 years because I was like, I can't handle the voices. I couldn't meditate. I stopped studying as much, stopped researching. But what I did do is I always maintained a connection to beings outside of, like, I just wasn't meditating and kind of learning more. I was just maintaining my connection to the fairies and the dragons and all these beings I knew were there. And then my guides came to me and, well, they're actually telling me to start with the writing. So I went through a depression. I was in a relationship that was toxic. And I went through a depression, went to counseling. And my counselor had said, if you could change anything, what's the first thing you would change? And I said, my job. And she goes, without thinking, what would you do? And I said, write. And I was a computer programmer. I had no idea. I didn't know the first thing about writing, other than when I was in college and high school, English teachers always said I was a fantastic writer. Like, they're like, geez, how can you write like this, to the point where you don't even have to write multiple drafts? I would just write one draft, and then they would be like, you need to change something for the assignment to make it, a draft type of thing.
One draft, and then that was it.
Yeah.
We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow. He's someone who helps others awaken to their authentic self while embracing all different realms. We're talking about fairies. We're talking about dragons. He experienced his first spiritual guide at the age of 13, which could also be a totem power. He's embracing different realms. We are talking about right now how this all switched out for you. So you were meditating. You became clairaudient. You were a computer programmer for 10 years. You shut this down. Where did you make that shift?
I started going to counseling for my depression and realized I wasn't happy at all in my job. And then I started writing urban fantasy books. And when I wrote those, I started healing. And that was a magical thing, is I found a way to heal from my childhood trauma. And in healing my childhood trauma, as I was writing those fantasy books, my guides came to me and said, hey, we want you to write about your experiences. Because this whole time, even though I had shut down the growth of like going into meditation and doing more advanced work, I was still clairaudient. I was still seeing things and experiencing things. I was just refusing the request of my guides to like develop it more, type of thing. So they go, we want you to write a book about your experiences. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going public with this. There's no way. I'll be ostracized, told I'm crazy. This is 2018, I think. And they were like, no, do it. And then 2020 came, and the pandemic and all that. And they said, okay, you're going to have a lot of time. We want you to start meditating. And I started meditating. A being showed up that was a galactic. And I was like, wait a second. I thought everything I had been working with was fairies. I never expected galactics to be, I knew they were real, but I never expected them to be like talking to me and communicating with me type of thing. A lot of the beings and experiences I had, I thought were just fairy beings in the woods and that type of thing. So they came to me, and I had this very traumatic moment of kind of reliving old memories and things that I had suppressed, scenarios of the word a lot of people would use would be abduction and that sort of thing. And I had to reach out for help. So I reached out to a web development client. She was a spiritual leader. She's 70 now, I think. She's been doing it for like 60 years. And she said a few things to me. She goes, I know you're remembering these scenarios, you're feeling fear, you're feeling all that. And I mean, the fear was to the point where I used to love UFO documentaries and those types of things. But if I watched anything that was not science fiction from a movie standpoint, but was like a documentary style about UFOs and aliens, I would go into this paralyzing state of fear where I would have to call a friend for help. I couldn't move.
So let me make sure I understand this. You started experiencing the galactic beings started coming to you. Are they grays? Do you know which area they're from?
So the beings that came to me were Zeta Reticulans. Okay. Sometimes they're called grays because they look gray. They're not the same species though. They're from the Zeta Reticulan system. I've met a couple grays, and I think they're a little bit taller, and they have a variety of different species that are from Zeta Reticuli. Some of them are very tall too.
When they came to you, I know you were going through the depression. You started writing books.
Right.
Come to you like in a dream.
I was meditating, and they were coming to me to do upgrades. I thought they were fairies that were coming to me, like these fairy interdimensional beings that were coming to me.
In your meditation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched a documentary I think it's called Hangar 1 Files. I watched the first episode of it, and it's about, if I remember right, it's about presidents who have experienced different ET phenomenon. And I went to take a nap, and when I took the nap, I woke up from the nap, and in the windows, we had windows running across the entire bedroom, like big full-length windows. I could see the reflections of these beings in the windows. I felt like I was on a medical bed, and there was a being standing beside me. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I could feel their hand, like they were holding my hand. I could feel it. And they were telling me not to be afraid. Everything was going to be okay, this and that. And I woke up from that nap, and I just freaked out because I was like, I knew it. I knew I had been taken. Now, the thing my guys are telling me to kind of cycle back on that I forgot to mention is about a year before that, I had an experience at the house we were in before that time where we were in the middle of the country, and I woke up at night, and I was used to waking up and seeing fairies come in because I would always leave offerings out. We were in the middle of the woods. We'd have goblins, gnomes. An ogre used to come every once in a while.
How old are you at this time?
33. Ogres and gnomes and goblins and all kinds of stuff coming back and forth from that apartment because it was in the middle of like the Appalachians in the woods or the house that we rented. And I woke up one night, and I was hovering about 3-4 inches from the bed and being slowly dropped down. And I looked over and saw this little being there. And I had a pink rose quartz lamp. So the pink shined off of them, and they had this kind of purplish gray look to them. But when I looked over, and I was like, oh, hey, because I was used to seeing fairies and them just being like, hey, what's going on? Curious. This being, its eyes got real big. I immediately dropped into the bed and kind of bounced a little bit. And I was like, it's okay. And then it just took off and ran right out the front door, but didn't even open the door. It like ran through the house, out the front door. I could see the front door from my bedroom. It just ran through it and disappeared and was gone. I always had this kind of inner knowing. I was like, that was a galactic, but I would write it off because I was like, why would galactics be taking me type of thing? until they came to me at the next apartment in that dream and showed me and released the memory that they'd been coming to me for a long time. And my one friend, to get through the fear, she was like, it happened to her. She just goes, are you here? I was like, yeah. She goes, are you safe? Yes. Are you healthy? Yes. She goes, and what's the problem? What's there to fear? Was there anything to fear? And I go, oh, no. And in that instant, 20 years of fear around galactics, around watching like movies. I tried to watch the movie The Fourth Kind, and I could only ever get 5 minutes into it before going into this paralyzing fear. Just a short 20-second conversation with her, and all my fear dissipated. And then within days, galactics were showing up and being like, hey, we're here. We want you to write about us. We want you to review your experiences and kind of figure out which ones were actually us and which ones weren't, which ones were fairies or other things. And then we're going to have you start talking to us more and exploring more. And that's when everything opened. So I was like 33, 34 at that time.
And this is when you start to shift more into, okay, I need to be recalling what was going on in my life with these galactics, because it sounds like they were coming to you. The first time as you're going through this, what's the first memory that you have of them?
It's actually from childhood. I used to have dreams as a child that I would lay down. Nights were very difficult for us because my dad would often be drunk and he'd be in his angry kind of state and producing a lot of fear in, young kids type of thing while they're sleeping. And so I would go to bed and I would just be like, I hope my friends come and I can go just kind of go ride around with them. And I would go in my dreams and I would ride around with galactics. And I remember one time actually being, I don't know, my guys are saying like 10 years old, and being floated out the window to a ship, taken on the ship and shown the ship. And I was like, I always thought those were just dreams. And they're like, no, those were real. You just remembered them as dreams. Like you were allowed to remember them as a dream so that you wouldn't think you were going crazy type of thing. I even had an experience later on after they started taking me back up where Zeta took me to a ship and was like, hey, I'm going to show you around this ship. I don't want you to freak out. And I went, why? And they went, you've been here before, and I'm going to show you some of the rooms. And started showing me like medical beds and these tanks with fluid in them and all this other stuff. And it was stuff that I had seen before as a kid, like walking around these ships, doing this type of thing. And it was just that I had not remembered it. I just always thought it was this cool dream that I was able to go to sleep and create this fictional world in my mind that to kind of escape. I always thought it was like an escape from the trauma, but here it was a real thing. It was me actually going up there and just remembering it as a dream.
We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow. He is someone who helps others awaken to their authentic self while embracing all different realms. We've been talking about fairies, we've been talking about Sasquatch, but we are talking right now about the galactic beings that you are truly connected to them. As you're going up through where you've been before on these ships, and you said that you were probably around 10 when you maybe first had that experience. At any time were you fearful? No. Okay. Is there anything that you remember from the ships that were pretty amazing?
From a childhood standpoint, I didn't remember much. I just remembered that I would go up and I would be standing with these extraterrestrials and they were my friends. That's the way I remembered it. It was very, very childlike scenarios of just going up and having fun and flying around and seeing the world from like a bird's eye view type of thing as you're moving around. Now, from adulthood, I've been on so many different types of ships. It's hard to explain the different natures, but I would say medical technology is very interesting. I've seen a lot of technology that is actually in our science fiction stories, like Star Trek, like the food. I forget what they call them in Star Trek, but there's some sort of food synthesizer that they just type in a code and it materializes food, and those types of things exist. Different technology like that. I've seen ships that they kind of are like their own little worlds where they have a flat top and there's nature growing on top, and they have the technology to power the ship, but it's floating through space with, a forest on top of it type of thing. The starport is an interesting one. There's where there's just a place of neutrality. I call it galactic Switzerland, where it doesn't matter who you are, you're allowed to go there as long as you don't cause problems. And it's a place where all kinds of different galactics kind of park and go about their days.
And what is that called?
A starport. Yeah, it's like a big ship that is a rest stop, like a meeting area, and the ships can come and go. And that's near Earth. That's it's like a monitoring station. A lot of stuff isn't allowed to pass by without certain things being known.
Is that where the Galactic Federation would reside? Is that the area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, parts of the Galactic Federation. There are a lot of these different kind of places, the surface of Earth and outside of Earth too.
We're going to take a break, and I want to find out a little bit about you coming in contact with your Zeta Reticuli beings, which are the galactic beings, what they really want you to do in the future. What is the connection? Why you, and why do they connect to some people and some people they don't? We'll be right back. We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow. Welcome back. You're listening to Open the Eye with Tanya Tyler. Willow from Awaken with Willow, someone who helps others awaken to their authentic self while embracing all realms. We have talked about fairies, leaving gifts, Sasquatch. We're talking right now about galactic beings. And Willow, you said they're from Zeta Reticuli.
Right. So the ones that I work with just refer to themselves as Zeta Reticuli. The beings I work with in general are big on reducing labels, because what it comes down to is that these are beings from other worlds and other stars that have multiple planets and multiple species. It's like saying humans are the only species on Earth. But I've seen small ones, big ones, multi-eyed ones, all kinds of different types. It's the same thing with them, that it's all energetic space.
Why do they connect to some people and some people not? What is that information that you've gotten from them?
A lot of it's vibration and readiness. So a lot of people believe they're ready to experience galactics, and it's a very big difference to experience them from a meditative state to an astral state to a physical state. And I get clients all the time who are like, I'm ready to experience them physically, and their team is like, absolutely not. And it's because there is a lot of fear that is programmed into people that you have to work through to be able to do that. And it's intense work. And if they just show up, that's where you get these stories of a lot of these documentaries and stuff that are fear-based, because people didn't actually understand the nature of what was going on. It was they're processing their experience through the lens of fear, not the lens of love. And there's a big difference when you're processing something through the lens of fear versus a lens of love. And when you do it from the lens of love, it's very observational. You can step back. You can say, okay, why did that happen? Why were you doing this? What was actually going on? When you're doing it from fear, you start making assumptions. You start thinking it was for your lowest good and all this stuff, which just completely taints the experience. So for a lot of people, they are experiencing too, but they wipe their memories, or they remember it as a dream. There's that as well. And I've had people say, like, well, if they're wiping our memories, it's not for our highest good. It's actually like, no, it is for your highest good, because if you had that memory, you would probably go crazy from the fear. So they're doing it because a lot of these are soul contract things where a lot of us anyway signed up for our galactic teams to come help us ascend, to make sure we get the upgrades to help guide us, to telepathically nudge us. So a lot of people that think they're talking to spirit guides when they're doing mediumship, for example, they're actually talking to galactics who are presenting as a human, because that's the only way the person can understand it. It is capable of understanding it. And then later you learn out, oh, wait, that was actually a galactic speaking to me from outside of Earth. It's all to make sure that we properly integrate is a big word. Can't integrate all the information and awareness at once. It's kind of like if I had gone into knowing and experiencing a lot of this stuff before processing with my spiritual friend who had asked me those questions of like, what do you have to fear, and helped me through that. If I had just been thrown onto a ship and like, hey, here's 30 different races that you're seeing, and there's all of the main ones that are in the mythology, Arcturians, Saurians, Pleiadians, all these beings there, you would come back and kind of, from that fear standpoint, I would have gone crazy. I would have been like, there's galactics here, what's going on? You have to do a lot of deprogramming what society has programmed into us. It's programmed fear because they're actually helping us, and the society we have doesn't want that help. Doesn't want that help because it changes the entire control structure. And it means it changes the financial structure, it changes the health structure, it changes everything. When you realize you have help from these beings and you can learn from them, people can learn medical skills that are natural medicines. Then you don't have a reliance on pharmaceuticals anymore. You can learn how to become a magnet by learning to become your authentic self. You know, they teach me a lot about authenticity and what that means energetically and quantumly in the laws of the universe to attract what brings you your ultimate happiness. And when you do that, you're free of the financial system. You're free of all these things that society wants to keep us bound to. So there's also a delicate balance there of making sure we can integrate the fact that they are here and that they are real without fear, and then making sure we can integrate everything in a safe way without trusting the universe. Trusting is a big one, and they'll teach you trust. Trusting your telepathy, trusting they're real. That's a big one, because a lot of people start seeing them. They start seeing whether it's galactics, dragons, fairies, all this different stuff. Their family units, their friend units, society in general starts telling them they're crazy to hold them back. So there's a big amount of trust in yourself that you need to build as well. And the more you trust yourself, the more you bring everything back to yourself. Everything comes back to your authentic self, whether you believe in these beings or not. It all comes back to being authentic to you and what is your truest form of experience and happiness. When that happens, you become this vibrational light. You become this light in the darkness, and beings will come to you. Even if you don't believe it, they're going to show up because they're going to see you, and you're going to be in a vibrational alignment for things to happen to shift your reality. Your vibration will start rising. Yeah. It's this thing where they've shown me, like, I've been into some very dark events. And not dark in like an evil way, but I just mean like density-wise. You know, UFO, specifically UFO convention. There's information on my YouTube if anybody's interested in that. YouTube is Awaken with Willow as well. There is an event I went to that was a paranormal event, and the density and vibration of everybody at that event was very low. They didn't realize there were galactics outside. Like, there was actually a ship outside of this event monitoring the event. This was an interesting thing where I wasn't even going to go to this event. I was at another convention, and a galactic masking as a human walked by the table, looked at my stuff, and I knew they weren't interested. I could feel it vibrationally, and just kept walking, but then, like, stepped backwards when they realized what I had. Didn't even pick anything up off the table, just looked at me and went, "I want you to go to this event." And I was like, "What?" "Okay." And they explained it to me, and I went, "Okay, I'll check it out." I went to register. They did not contact me. And about a week later, I get a telepathic ping from an extraterrestrial, Zeta Reticulan, who pings me. And I'm like, "Wait, you're the energy I met at the convention?" And they go, "Yeah." And they're like, "Did you make it into this event?" And I went, "No, they never contacted me." They go, "Oh, well, we're going to fix that right now." 2 minutes. The person in charge of this event called me and registered me for that event. Craziest thing that, you know, it's not something that you would ever expect. Like, you get a telepathic ping from an extraterrestrial. I like how you said this galactic being disguising as a human. Yeah. And they do that a lot. Yeah. And this was one that it was like, because of the way I experienced it, they looked human, but I could tell they weren't because their eyes were way too big. the shape of their head was different. But anybody else that just gave them a passing look would just think it was a human walking around. So I go to this event, and I'm like, why am I here? Because it's so dense. And they go, you're doing light work. And then there's a group of these beings outside, and I start asking them, what are they doing here? And they show me image, and they're like, we're monitoring everybody. And all of the people are these very black, it's like this dark image, very, very pale light. And then there's me, and I'm this bright vibrational light. And there's a couple other people that are giving off some light. And they're like, you're here to bring light into this space because of my vibration. Another galactic sent me, and this group was there monitoring it because they were going to start taking people to upgrade them over the weekend. So I'm talking to this group and realizing that they can see the vibration, because when I was sitting there, I got a ping from them, and literally the ping was, what are you doing here? And I went, what do you mean? And they go, you're so vibrationally bright in your love frequency and this, like, why are you here? And I explained to them about this other galactic sending me. But that's how they see you, is they can see your energy. It's kind of like when you had mentioned feeling so much love from some of my videos. People say that all the time. You can feel the energy, the love vibration coming off of that stuff. They can feel it too. Some of them can see it physically, the way they process. And then they also have technology. I've seen ships that have technology that feel the vibration of humans and can kind of like measure it and that sort of thing. So the more you raise your vibration, become authentic, purify yourself. Purifying is a big thing too with ETs. They're especially to manage the levels of fear. Having a purified vessel, like a healthy diet, lack of drug use, no alcohol. Alcohol's a big thing. The more you purify your vessel, raise your vibration, they can see you. Not only do you attract more of them, because a lot of them are just curious as to why you're light and what you're doing.
We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow, someone who helps others awaken to their authentic self while embracing all realms. And we're talking right now about galactic beings, raising your vibration. What are some of the things that people can do about raising their vibration? You've mentioned no drugs, alcohol, cleaner diet. What else would help raise people's vibration?
Strongest number one thing I would say is to figure out what your authentic self is and embrace it fully. And it will change. The thing is, over time, it will change. So if you're somebody who's working a 9-to-5 job, or, even longer. A lot of people these days are working far more than 40 hours. Figuring out, what is it you love? What is it that brings you joy? A lot of people are creative. Some people might be working a job but want to work on cars. So start working on cars in your downtime. If you're creative and you want to paint, start painting. If you're a writer and you want to write, start writing. They used to ask me at conventions when I was doing the urban fantasy series, they would be like, how did you start? How did you make these books? I want to write. And I went, well, the first thing you have to do is just sit down and write the book. And that's the part that people don't embrace and act on, is they go, I want to do this, but then they go back home, they play video games. Some people have families and children in this. People and clients who have very time-consumed lives because of a family, there's always 5 to 10 minutes a day that you can carve out to do something that is going to embrace your authenticity. I use the example of writing books. The fantasy series, the way I did it is you sit down, and if you write 5 minutes a day, you could actually have a book within a year, and you start selling that book. That could set you free from your job. But if you sit in this space of victimizing and just saying like, well, you're a victim to the system, you're a victim to whatever it is, your job, your health, all this other stuff, you're always going to be in that state, in that energy. You're going to be in a low frequency. But when you start embracing your authenticity, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, energy that snowballs. It's like building a little snowball that moves forward and forward and forward. It grows bigger and bigger and bigger. The more you do that, the more time you find, the more the energy flows, the more the universe returns to you to be able to do that. And that's how you set yourself free from these low vibrational spaces, is just embracing that authenticity. Now, the other things are The top things I would say just from working with clients and things, removing yourself from toxic relationships, whether those are partnerships or family dynamics, setting firm boundaries. There's an issue in our society where people are afraid to say no, and no is one of the best things you can actually say to protect yourself, your energy, and your authenticity. Starting to say no and set healthy boundaries with people so they don't pull you away from what you want to do. Meditation is a good one to refocus your mind, and also that's how you end up starting to communicate with beings, is usually through meditation.
What would you suggest for the time frame? What are your thoughts?
Meditation is a blanket word that the spiritual community has kind of hijacked one specific thing, sitting down and closing your eyes. It can actually be a lot of things, and that's where, as far as the time frame goes, if you can do it for 5 minutes, do it for 5 minutes. If you can do it for 20, do it for 20. As long as you're doing it, even for 2 to 3 minutes when you wake up in the morning, that's a good start just to get started. That's for typical, what you would call sitting down, closed eye, focusing on your breath meditation. But meditation means many things. You can meditate while you're cooking. Cooking can clear your mind, can help you focus. There are clients I have who can't sit still, and part of the problem with sitting still is relaxation. I have a relaxation meditation that is actually 20 to 30 minutes long to get you into a relaxed state and teach you how to do it properly, because we're a society that has so much energy projected onto people who are empaths and all this, that when they sit down, they can't sit still. They have to move. They can't transmute the energy, so they can't get relaxed. Those people tend to be more, initially anyway, physical meditators, meaning doing free flow dance and just listening to some music, some beats, dancing intuitively, and then breathing. And as you breathe, you're kind of pulling energy through you, you're clearing your mind, and they get experiences and downloads that way. Some people do yoga and use that as a meditative experience. Some people run. The idea of meditation as just kind of a sit-down type of thing, that's for kind of the type of meditations that I have that are journey meditations, Buddhist meditation types of things. But it doesn't mean you have to do that. If you're somebody who struggles with that, then it means you need to find some other way to do that, or find a longer period of time to learn how to actually relax your body. I mean, to answer your question, the timing is whatever amount of time you can do is best. There was a time where I was meditating only 5 minutes a day when I was in college, deeply committed to doing this work, and they said, we want you to experience. They had me, my guides would come to me, and they had me meditating 3, 4, 5 times a day for 20 to 30 minutes plus to learn about different techniques that I do. But obviously, I'm a different case because this is my work. Somebody else who's just trying to better their life, as long as you do it kind of every day, every other day, consistency is key. We always say it's better to do something for 5 minutes a day than to do something for like an hour or two for 7 days and give up on it.
We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow, someone who helps others to awaken to their authentic self while embracing different realms. And I keep saying different realms because we've talked about Sasquatch, we've talked about fairies. Let's go back to a couple things real quick. The Sasquatch, are they in different dimensions? Is that what your information that you're getting?
The way they've explained it to me, so when I first met Sasquatches, they were telepathically communicating. I knew I was communicating with them, and they told me I needed to go into the woods and meet them. And I went, okay. And there's a mix of excitement, and I was still dealing with a lot of fear. They're the ones who helped me through my fear the most, because they actually brought me to the woods, came to me, and took baby steps to help me understand that. Going out multiple times to reduce fear. And when finally was in a space that I could stand next to my Sasquatch friend, her name's Kanlai. She's a kind of like a teacher, like leader, shaman type in their village clan. She was standing in front of me. I could see her in my third eye, but I could see she was hovering almost on a different, almost like a centimeter or two above the land. And I was like, what's going on? And she started to explain to me that they could make sense of it for me is to call it the earth and onion. So the earth is this onion. It's a ball of consciousness, and it has multiple dimensional layers of physical existence. But you have to vibrate high enough to experience those different layers, and in some cases you actually have to travel to those spaces. Dimensions in the sky that I've been to, that I had a gargoyle friend take me, I had to astral travel with him and go up through a portal in the sky to get to that dimensional layer of Earth's consciousness. There are dimensions below us. Some of these beings we can see more clearly because it's like the layers are touching. Like we're one layer and then we have two layers pressing together, or there's a hole pushed through a couple of different layers.
Would that be portals?
Yeah, so some of those holes are portals. So you have fairies live on their own world. Depending on the type of fairy, you'll get different spaces they live in, which is why you'll have stories of people going to these other worlds where time is different and this and that, because they're actually in a different layer of Earth's consciousness. And Sasquatch, the way they've said is they live on a layer that's very close to ours. They're able to, not just because of living on that layer, people can sometimes see them, but they're also able to pass between our world and theirs. And they have such a high vibration that one of the things that happens with high vibration is you get access to more, people call them gifts and abilities and stuff, but it's just kind of universal nature of energy to be able to mask so they can walk around seemingly invisible and then appear out of nowhere. When somebody notices them and they realize, oh, I've been seen, they can bring their energy back in and make themselves invisible again. Energetic capabilities that allow these beings to almost seemingly appear and disappear. And even when they disappear, though, a lot of times they're still right there. They just didn't want you to see them in the first place. A variety of vibrational people see them, low vibration, high vibration. If you've seen them, they've either let you see them or they've forgotten or thought they were like completely alone in the woods and weren't really worried about it. And then they pass by and then you go, oh my God, there's a Sasquatch. Telepathically, they pick that up and they go, oh no. They like hide themselves because they don't want people knowing they're there. They want to be left alone. One of the reasons that the mythology is so full of fearful stories, one is vibrationally, if you're unaligned and you go into the woods and you've got guns with you and you're hunting or you're playing radios and bringing technology in and all this, a lot of them don't want those vibrations in the woods. So they're not being aggressive to hurt you. They're trying to chase you away, get that vibration to leave. They're protecting their home. They just don't want you there. You're still alive. You're unhurt. You're unharmed type of thing. Now, the other issue is the Sasquatches that I talk to have all said the same thing, and they say they are Sasquatches. Other people are going into the wilderness and experiencing things and saying it's Sasquatch when it's not, something else. But the problem is there's so many beings, so many dimensional realms. There's portals from other worlds. You have galactics. You have galactics who can open a portal on their planet and come into our woods, our wilderness. Troll-like beings. There are troll-like beings who I've seen that could easily be confused for Sasquatch. The one question I always ask is, I go, how do you know it was a Sasquatch? And they go, well, because I saw it. And my question is, did you talk to it? And then they go, well, no. And I'm like, okay, well, then how do you really know what you saw was a Sasquatch, a gnome, a Zeta Reticuli, whatever? And ask them those questions. And that's also a frequency thing that when they answer, you can tell if they're telling the truth or not. A lot of these beings in the woods who are being aggressive or who are being less than benevolent, I guess, it's not because that's their true nature. It's not because they want to be. It's because humans have destroyed so much, completely misused the ocean, completely mistreated it. Even they've completely mistreated the woodlands.
We're talking to Willow from Awaken with Willow. He is someone who is just pure love. He is connected to his authentic self, which also embracing other realms. He does so many magical things. Willow, I want to talk a little bit about what are you doing running around the earth? What special thing are you doing right now?
I'm doing a couple of things. I am embracing my authentic self, which is exploration and travel. On this trip of just fully embracing myself, which has been the most magical thing. I've never been happier. Even people seeing my videos who followed me for years are like, you're just completely different from a way that you present in your videos, full of joy and everything. And that's the embracing of authenticity that I talk about, whatever it is. When you do that, you'll just always be happy. And it's not even just about happiness. It's just you'll be joyful, I guess, is the way to put it. I'm also was guided down to Florida, to Key West. I didn't want to go that direction. My home, my heart is in Arizona. And it turned out that I needed to go along the coast to grid light. Now, what that means is...
That's what you're saying, grid light.
Yep, grid light. What that means is I'm kind of jumping around. I went from Tampa down to the Keys, all the way up. I'm in Georgia right now. Going to a beach and working with the ocean and pulling light energy, loving light energy from source into these places to help transmute negative energy, to help wake people. I can walk past people. They hit my energy field, and when that happens, they'll get a shift, an upgrade, a download, a little bit of light just to help them on their journey, help awaken more and be in a more loving space. So doing that with the ocean, too, is she needs a lot of work. She's been so mistreated by humanity that we have a lot of trust building and a lot of energy work to help kind of rebalance things with that consciousness, because the ocean itself, the entire water network is one consciousness. You have the earth consciousness, and then you have ocean consciousness, then you have the things in the ocean, and it kind of, goes down from there. And so I'm just doing my thing, being authentic, being my love frequency, joy frequency, walking around.
It's how you're shedding the light. That is the gridding of the light. All you need to do is just keep yourself in love, keep yourself happiness, and then just walk past people. So you're not putting anything in the ground. You're not moving rocks around. You're not doing anything like that.
No, and I have done that. So there's a free YouTube workshop, ways that I've gridded light before. In the past, I gridded my old town, and I used energetic technologies, and I talk about that more in that workshop, so like light technologies coming down and helping to hold light in place. But this is a little bit newer to me in the sense that my guides are like, your vibration is so strong and so authentic right now that you don't even need to do the light technology stuff. You just need to simply be on the beach, walk it with your feet in the water to bring it into the ocean, and pass the people we guide you to walk past. So if you go to my YouTube at Awaken with Willow, there's a playlist called Workshops, and I believe it's just called Gridding Light, the name of it. But there's several there, too. There's berries, dragons.
I want to tell you that I'm really mesmerized by all this, that I'm just like in awe of all of this. We can follow you on social media.
I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, and it's all Awaken with Willow.
You're moving your direction towards Arizona, but let's talk a little bit about Mount Shasta.
So that is around the solstice. You'll find the information on my website. The dates are the 20th through 24th. I'm not positive on that, but it is the solstice date of June. That is an event that is a Lemurian event. It's called the Lemurian Life Expo. So it's all about water energy, the ancient civilization of Lemuria. I did a interview with Reuben Langdon.
Is this part of what he's doing? Oh, I love Reuben. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't even matter. I didn't even care about anything else.
All you do is say it's Mount Shasta. It's the most magical place I've ever been in my entire life.
I was like, I will do whatever it takes to get out there. You let me know. I'll do a workshop. Perfect. That sounds good. And we came up with this idea that, so I don't know anything about Mount Shasta. I'm going to go out there for about a week before the event to build trust with the land and the beings and all that. And there's a place called Fairy Falls. We're going to hold a field trip, and I will just do my storytelling activations, that's the primary work I do, where I just tell people my stories, and in that space, they're able to quantumly kind of bring themselves into that energy. If you go to my website and you click, I believe it's a blue bar, it just says, upcoming events.
I highly recommend follow Willow from Awaken with Willow. His information is credible. He's just pure love, as we can feel right now. Will you come back and share some information after you've gone through the Mount Shasta, the experiences?
Oh, absolutely. My primary service is spirit art. I draw the beings around people, and then I have divine counsel transmissions to basically bring them their entire divine counsel forward. The newest thing is the event. Set up the Thursdays evenings with Willow, where I'm going around and I've got an event in St. James, New York coming up, an event out in Kent Square, which is outside of Philadelphia, facilitate activations and downloads.
Willow, you are amazing. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing all of your knowledge. And we look forward to some more information from Mount Shasta. Connect up with Willow on Awaken with Willow. Follow him on social media. Willow, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.